Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson here today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Barian O'Connor.
I'm here, brother. Like a special Monday night edition of A Free Solution. Because I've got a crazy work schedule the next couple days, man. It's gonna be wild.
Yeah, so we're accommodating Tim.
Always. always. We gotta work it around Tim's work schedule.
Yeah. So
it feels good though to be on my brand new computer at my house doing this versus like everything seems to work. I can load in like 30 news articles and not worry about a crash in the middle of everything. Usually, like we've had internet problems occasionally, but it's been way more consistent than usually the hotel stuff. Yeah.
So hopefully it should be good, but we have it's going to be a bit of a random show tonight, folks. We're going to be kind of like all over the place. It's going to be a scatterbrain show, but hopefully it's fun. Please contribute to our ADHD with comments and send us down weird tangents. It's going to
do that.
Yeah. So, we love doing that stuff. So, yeah, we're going to jump into it in a minute, but, we're going to talk about Olympics. We're going to talk about the CIA. We're going to talk about boneless chicken wings. Like, it's
those bastards. Jesus.
It's going to be, wait till you hear the court ruling about boneless chicken wings.
Just amazing.
It will enrage you. Stay tuned for more.
I'll pack the court in Ohio for sure. We need better judges there.
Yeah, no
absurdities.
At some point in time, we just gotta say it like it is.
Dude, right before the show, I ran across a tweet by Joe Biden that we've got to talk about. He's got we got to talk about it. It's interesting.
Let's jump into the show and see we get to it.
Now, an hour of clarity for exhausted people of our nation mired in toxic partisanship. Left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson here today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Barian O'Connor.
I'm here, brother. And look, it's one of my favorite seasons, okay? Like there's a big deal. I think we should jump right into the topic of the Olympics. I love what the Olympics stand for. I love the fact that the world comes together and instead of blowing each other up, they compete in sports. We've got some funny, hilariously funny stuff going on right now with the Olympics that I think you and I need to offer our libertarian perspective on. And I just think it's a wonderful time. Like
everyone's been waiting for our perspective on the Olympics.
They do need our perspective. They absolutely look. I honestly, on some level, think the world needs our perspective on what's going on in this round of the Olympics because it's weird, it's strange, it's so let's get into it. Right, there was a opening ceremony that has the world just a flutter, just absolutely losing its collective mind. And again, look, I think it's one where me and you are like looking at both sides of this going, okay, look, like there's literally no one.
I look at it and I'm like, man, this is exhausting. Like I'm tired of both sides of this conversation and I'm just ready to be done. I'm just like, okay, just going to start muting people on Twitter.
Yeah. It's like everyone is wrong. Like when we're sitting here on our libertarian high horse, our philosophical purity, where we want to rule the world. And this is an area where we get things more right than more other people than the rest of the world. Like, but we don't get it right when we participate in what I'm calling cultural Marxism. We do not get it right when we participate in it. It's
okay.
That's why we should be in charge of everything. We're going to get it right. You and I right now are going to break down the Olympic opening ceremony. Let's do it. Did you watch it?
Yeah, I did watch it actually.
I didn't.
No, you didn't watch it. You're just coming in cold. You're just like, I saw clips on Twitter, and you're gonna hear my opinion on it.
That's right. I'm gonna give you my opinion on
so I did watch it. You know, it was, man, I'll be careful because I have French friends, but like it was pretentious and way too long. Is how I would describe the opening ceremony. Like there's a lot of like skits. What it was is like each like bridge on the River Seine had like a different like kind of skit to it.
Okay.
And so there's like different stuff. Like some of them were cool, some of them were just kind of weird. I didn't get them. Because there's a whole, I kid you not, like a menage a trois thing, and I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know what that has to do with the Olympics, but all right.
That's
then there's some
French,
like cool,
though.
it was very French.
Bonjour, bonjour, mon ami.
You know, there's you know, some like people like dancing like on these like giant sticks. They were cool. Like the metal show that got a bunch of people like really upset, like, oh my god, it's Satanism. Like, I actually thought that was kind of cool. The metal show. Do you know what I'm talking? Where they're holding Marie Antoinette's head and like the flames coming out and
I did catch clips of that, and I'm like, well, isn't that in a way like we're just combining modern day performance art with a version of history that
it's kind of like
real, you know, like it's kind of real. Like this is what happens to tyrants.
Yeah, I mean, see, I didn't mind that. Like the message of that, you know, the theater of it, like a bunch of people are like, oh man, like they're showing people like beheading like aristocrats. I'm like, do you guys not know French history? Like what's like?
It's actually a beautiful piece of French history in a way. So look, like
I mean, you know, the whole Robespierre era got a bit out of hand.
Sure. They arguably when we turn to violence as a solution to our situations, like we always go too far. Like that's a real thing, you know. So do we have history where we've went too far? Yeah, all over the place, you know.
Yeah.
But so there were lots of things about it. The big one that I caught, and I almost got caught up in it, right? Because I value, I have placed a high
the culture warrior O'Connor.
The culture warrior. I do place a high value, and I think it's under discussed about the importance of Christian philosophy. But I see Christian philosophy as a distillation of the best history that has been offered to us, the stories that have been offered. They have borrowed, Christianity borrows the best stories from history, going all the way back to, you know, Zarathustra, going back further than that, going to Confucius. They borrow the best of the best and they tell parables about it, and they bring it in together where they synthesize it into. And guys, I'm not talking about organized religion. I'm talking about Christian philosophy. And there's guys like, look, reality dictates that if you don't see that there's a huge difference between the organized presentation of Christian philosophy or the organized presentation of Christianity and Christian philosophy, we're going to have more talks, because I'm going to have to sit you down and like, we're going to have a beer and we're going to have to talk about it, because there's a reality to Christian philosophy that's absolutely beautiful, that places the individual at the center of their rights and their respective responsibilities to the world, that I find very appealing. So there was a conflation between the big dinner scene, where it was probably a takeoff on the gods having dinner on Mount Olympus with Dionysus, right? And modern Christianity, who has been probably understandably like in the crosshairs of the religious doctrine offered by the state, has taken on Christianity. I think that some reaction is not warranted, but yet understandable. Let me put it that way.
Folks are sensitive to it. And listen, I'm not really involved in a church right now, but I grew up Pentecostal. I very much understand, like, there's a uncomfortableness with religion, particularly in public settings, not as much as the French. I'll have you know, right. They really don't like religion in public settings. Sure. Maybe we could talk about that a little bit too. They're interesting in that regard, but yeah, I understand, like, there's a feeling that even if like there's some level of Christian hegemony in a lot of places, there's still a feeling that like you can't fully express your beliefs without people like either shutting down your conversation, or at least getting weird about it, right? So that's kind of the general vibe that people have about it. So they get sensitive about depictions that Christians feel mock Christianity.
Sure.
Which leads into this.
Correct. An incorrect interpretation of a poorly performed version of the gods on Mount Olympus having a dinner celebrating the world not fighting, the world participating in sport. Like the Olympics, Kevin, as far as I understand the Olympics, and I used to do a little bit of a bit on it when I was doing just my normal podcast, was that when I was doing my campaign podcast and doing solo, like at the heart of the Olympics was a group of Greek nation states that formerly warred with each other, that had just come together to fight off a threat of the movie The 300 is about it, where they came together and fought off, I want to say, a religious aggression, a worldwide domination strategy. They came together and then they decided instead of killing each other, they could fight together to protect each other's rights. And then after that, they kind of come together and said, let's celebrate our greatness and our unity through the pursuance of sports. And I go to wrestling, where it's like wrestling is the sport of the gods, where
it's the OG Olympic sport.
Correct. It absolutely is. And it was like, hey, what we're going to do is have people engage in physical combat with rules by which they don't kill each other, but they can still assert their dominance and demonstrate their physical excellence and their dedication to a sport. Like, you can't be a good wrestler without being at least high level dedication to physical fitness. It's an impressive fact about that sport. Like, you could be an average athlete in everything else. You could be below average in everything else. And if you take your skills, whatever skill set it is, dedicate yourself to training really hard, you can be a great freaking wrestler. It's an absolute reality. So there's lots of things to like about wrestling, and there's lots of things to like about the Olympics. It's sort of, in a way, a testament to unity. It's a testament to competition versus beating each other with sticks and stabbing each other with swords. So I really like the concept of the Olympics. I really like it. I
don't like it too. Like, it doesn't always prevent like wars, but it's better to channel those competitive energies into this type of competition rather than territorial competition. And so like I think like the idea behind it and the hope behind it is good. Again, not always working out that way, but the more opportunities people can be brought together under peaceful circumstances, the better.
Yeah, I mean, like look at the statement that was made in, was it the 1940 Olympics, where we entered a black athlete, and some of the details are escaping my old brain right now.
I think you're thinking of the 36 Olympics
36.
In Berlin. It's 1936, yeah. And Jesse Owens, I want to say, is the athlete.
Yes, thank you. Yes, fastest runner in the world at the time. And it was this moment where somehow we ended up losing the plot after that, but where we stood on principle as a nation and entered the best man for the job, and he won, and the world celebrated his victory at a time when I would say racism was probably a lot worse then than it is now, and we still made that statement bravely and boldly in the way that we should as Americans.
Yeah, absolutely. Just focused on like, hey, here's the best of the best in our nation, and again, often not meeting that standard consistently, but there's moments of hope and like ideology that was rooted in like the founding principles of the country that would break through occasionally and more becomes consistent.
There's a who knows, maybe this is going to spark a world event, but the Ukrainian fencing competition with the Russian fencer, where the Ukrainian scores the winning point and refuses to shake the Russian's hand. Now, the Olympics exists outside of war. I understand the Ukrainian guy's position. I do wish that he shook his hand. I think that would have been a bigger statement, that war is a tool of governments, that human beings on a competitive field are better than war. That's the message I would have liked to have come out of that. Completely understand the Ukrainian guy. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not mad at him about it. It's just,
listen, I don't know the exact circumstances of that. I didn't see that. I mean, sometimes it'll happen where there's specific outspoken Russian athletes who are aggressively for. I don't know if that was one of those cases. So just before I opine on it, I mean, generally, I agree with you. But
yeah, and look, fair enough. I don't know the whole story either. There are times when an athlete tries to cheat to win or pull some dirty moves, and honestly, at that point, maybe you shouldn't shake that guy's hand. But that's what it looked like to me. That's what's being made of it is that Slava Ukraine, because he like beat the Russian and wouldn't shake his hand. And it's like, guys, you're playing this cultural Marxism game where the only one that wins is government, and it's not you. Alinsky style politics.
I don't know that that's the correct use of cultural Marxism, but
don't you think so though? Like we're overly emotional and being led about, our behaviors are being led about by things that are forced upon us to argue over. And arguably, I feel like war perhaps
maybe, I don't know. I feel like people use cultural Marxism in all sorts of strange ways, but just to mean, I don't know. I don't know how you define it, but I see it get used in ways like cultural things I don't like.
Yeah, that's how I'm using it. Exactly. That's very well. Yeah,
I don't like
well
this,
said.
So it's cultural Marxism. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's correct. No, honestly, I get what you're saying, but in a way, that is how I use it. But where it's people fighting over things that the government are forcing us to fight over, and that the only one that wins from that specific argument is the champions of government, the type B cluster B personality disorders, the narcissists, the sadists that get themselves into positions of power. Been listening to Jordan Peterson, in case you can't tell.
Yeah, apparently. I know that's that. So I won't get into that, like the specific Russia Ukraine thing too much, because again, if my country be invaded, I'd probably feel certain ways, and I said I don't know what the exact context is. Maybe it's the right thing to do. Maybe it's not. I don't know.
Sure.
But no, I mean, like, listen, generally, like, this stuff is cool. I like watching the Olympics. It's I get to root for Team USA, and like, again, there's no like rhyme or reason behind it other than I happen to be born in the United States, and that's fine. Like, that's like, it's really all right. I know people are like, oh well, like, what about these athletes from these other countries? Like, I don't know. I don't know any of them. I just USA, great.
I mean, we all rooted for the Jamaican bobsled team. Let's be honest. Like, everybody, Cool Runnings. We made a great movie out of it. It was an awesome story about Olympic sports. Like, 4 guys are like, you know what we do? We run pretty fast. We're probably not going to win, too much in the actual running competitions, but like, we can go to the Olympics and be bobsledders. And they're like, we don't really have a sled. And people are like, here's a sled. We don't really have good helmets. Here's some helmets. Like, it was a great story about people coming together. And like, it was just a great story. I don't think they placed. I don't think they got a medal, but they were there sliding their machine down, icy slopes and just going for it. Yeah, it's good stuff, It was really good stuff.
But no, and there's some cool stuff out there. There's like they just introduced this new one that's like a kayak race where you get like dropped off a slope, and then you go down like some like quick rapids, and you have to go around an obstacle course, and you have to do one full rotation in the kayak too in order to like qualify your win.
All right, I love it.
I watched a bunch of that. I was like, that actually looks very cool. Like, I would love to try that. I would not win that competition. But
19-year-old me is like, oh my God, that's the sport for me. I could do that. Like, I could just really jump right in and do it. I know it. Like, I have it.
Yeah. So, and I love kayaking. I've never been quite that adventurous with kayaking, but it looks fun. And they got like break dancing and stuff, and like the one Olympic event that I know I'm gonna end up like having to watch is like the marathon. My wife loves watching like women's like running, like women's like marathon runners. So like gonna be hearing all the commentary about all the American folks. We watched the qualifying trials.
All right.
Watch the whole thing. So we're
marathons take like 3 hours, and
they sure do. They sure do too.
All right, well, that's
probably be watching the whole thing, and or like just watching the boys. Like, all right, boys, let's go to the park.
Yeah, my oldest kid has run in marathons. Believe it or not, she ran in the Boston Marathon, and she ran in the Chicago Marathon.
Oh, no kidding. That's awesome. Those are cool races, and then especially like once you. I don't know. How'd she get in? Was it like a lottery thing, or is it like did she qualify?
I don't know. She's rich. She probably just bought her way in. I don't know.
Oh, you can
She's
like
doing-
get like charity things sometimes do that, but like some of these
Yeah.
they're like tough to get in.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. You gotta like either like do a lottery. Like I have a friend who got lucky. He got the New York City Marathon lottery this year, and so he's gonna do it. And then but like otherwise you have to like be really fast to like qualify to get in. Like so they don't just like let anyone in who like registers. You gotta like either be really fast and qualify, you gotta win a lottery, or you have to raise like a bunch of money.
Huh. So I'm going to have to guess that she won a lottery because I didn't really go down that wormhole that far. I just know that she went, she ran, she posted a time like that. That's what I know, so
Yeah.
I didn't, weirdly enough, I don't have all the details on that.
Yeah. It's just that like there's so many more runners now. Like that's just what it is.
Yeah. Running has no appeal to me.
Yeah.
But all right.
But,
so like
anyway, I mean, like, yeah, the Olympics. I mean, I think we've just vibed about the Olympics for like 20 minutes now. I mean, we didn't talk about much of the cultural stuff. Like, yeah, I'm not too worried about like again the whole like, oh, this is a Last Supper thing. Like, man, there's just a million Last Supper things. Like, it's on. I don't really think it was like even the painting you talked about, like, sort of references like just a manner in which suppers were painted in that time period. It's like it's really all it is. Like don't overthink it, guys. Have fun, enjoy the Olympics. Just it's not.
Yeah, and look, I'm with you. It was weird. It was a strange presentation. It was very modernistic, very drag queen story hour-ish, but that's okay. Like I mean, I can get being annoyed, but don't let cultural Marxism win, Kevin. And by that I mean things that I don't like. Don't let them win.
Don't let them win. All right. Well, on that note, we're gonna head to break. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. We're gonna be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
Yeah. All right, you guys out there, don't forget to hit the likes, hit the hearts, make some comments, let people know that you're having fun watching this show, and we enjoy you as much as you enjoy us. So thanks for participating, and let's keep it going. It's we're getting some more views on Spotify, we're getting a few more views on YouTube, and X is kind of getting us a number of people like Cryonics in from X. I love it. I love seeing this. I appreciate it. It's good stuff. It makes me feel good. It makes me want to do more of these things. Plus, send us a few pennies on the Facebook app with the stars. We've got like 80 cents, Kevin. We're freaking killing it. Killing it.
Right.
All right. We got a question out there. All right. Our buddy John Barron on YouTube. Tim, seeing you're on sports, what's your thought on the MMA removing the 12-6 elbow rule? Is that the one where you could take your elbow and strike it from 12 down to 6 into a guy's face? And it was against the rules, and now it's like, go ahead and smash that guy's head through the mat. I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with MMA, nor am I familiar with boxing. I used to watch boxing when I was a kid, and I watched Duck Koo Kim take a shot to the chin and pile up in a heap, and he ended up dying. And it was one of the worst things I ever saw. And I was about 8 years old, and I used to love boxing until I saw that. So I, John, prefer, and I know a lot of wrestlers go into the MMA. I prefer wrestling, and I wish that there was money in wrestling because I see these kids are the most dedicated athletes on the face of the planet. Like, absolutely. But the way to make money in wrestling is to become a coach, and maybe get an endorsement, things like that. And I wish that we reserve more money for a non-blood sport where it's a real same level of training that goes into a boxing match, same level of training that goes into MMA. Like, I would prefer that. I think it's classier. I don't like seeing
Tim's trying to build the audience for wrestling. He's really selling it today. Like, and everyone get into it, and let's get some televised wrestling outside the Olympics.
Well, like the NCAA tournament's televised, and it's an absolute blast to watch. I do have a list somewhere of the Olympic athletes that are going to be wrestling. We've got guys like Kyle Dake, Kyle Schneider. What's this? Jordan Burroughs didn't participate this year, I think, or Kyle Dake beat him for the spot. I'm not sure, but it's too bad those two guys are at the same weight. Spencer Lee is back. Like, this kid hasn't been doing anything nationally. He's a 3-time NCAA championship Division I champion, is back wrestling for the USA. And dude, he smoked the competition on his way to qualifying. Like, he tech falled everybody getting to go to the Olympics. Like, it's bizarre. And look, I know kids that are going to be Olympic wrestlers that my kid wrestled against when he was 8 years old. PJ Duke, Zach Ryder, Braden Woodward. These kids are going to be the next generation of Olympic wrestlers. Like, these kids live the sport. They're absolutely phenomenal. They're amazing athletes. Absolutely high level dedication. You know, my kids, I love my kid, Kevin. I'll tell you what, he smoked kids that live in the gym. Like, he's good. If he wanted to be like an Olympic caliber athlete, I think he could do it. He's got more brainier pursuits, though. He's kind of a nerd. I love him, but like, he's an exceptional wrestler, absolutely exceptional wrestler, pound for pound and minute for minute of practice time. He is the best wrestler in the world. I'm not like, that's kind of a funny way to put it, but it's real and he knows it. And sometimes he watches this show and I hope he hears this.
Yeah.
I'll clip this out for him later and give it to him.
All right. We should head on to the next part of the show, I suppose. I don't know, man. Tim, are we gonna do the? I don't know. I did not do as much prep on this because normally I do prep on Monday nights. So like, I'm rolling with the things that you've sent me.
All right. So the next, we've got to do a little score tallying for our American citizens who profess to be the greatest gunsmen in the world. And then we can move on to, let's see, what? I'll do a little homage to James Seward, our local former senator who passed away this week. And then we'll get into the shooting stuff, the shooter. We'll do a little bit more about him.
Okay. Well, I suppose we'll head back and
we'll do this one later, but yes, we're gonna do something about this one.
There we go. Yeah, finally, someone sending us some distracting news. Good.
Yeah.
All right. Go back. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin, and look. So far, I got a little bit of bad news on the Olympic scorecard for the professional shooters in the United States. Right now, as far as the gold medal count goes, the number 1 country has 3 gold medals. The number 2 country has 2 gold medals. After that, the United States has 0 medals in all of the shooting competitions that have already happened. China has picked up 3 gold medals, 1 silver medal in the to-date shooting competition. South Korea has picked up 2 gold medals, 2 silver medals. Italy has picked up 1 silver medal, 1 bronze medal. Sweden has 1 silver medal, and the United States has big fat 0. Now, we are in the areas where the United States are historically strong. We've gotten into the men's and women's trap shooting. I do anticipate the medal count swinging drastically back in our favor, but kudos to China, man. They're generating some shooters. I do have a bit of bad news that I want to share with the local audience. Despite what I view as a political machine that does not serve us as human beings, are the guy that was my senator for a number of years in Senate District 51, James Seward, passed away at 72. Now, he served in the New York State Senate from 1987 until 2020, and as a Republican and as a relatively small government guy, I think he was always outmanned. I think that he was always outgunned. He was a guy that would come and speak at our Tea Party rallies. He was a guy that recognized you. Okay, like, I managed restaurants. He was always very friendly to me, even like when he saw me afterwards, he still remembered my name. My my oldest child's mom worked for him for a long time. I always felt that James Stewart was a community-minded individual, if imperfect, and even if he didn't fight as hard on some of the subjects as I would have liked him to, there was a distinct impossibility to the amount of success that he would have been able to achieve anyway, given the current winds of politicians. So sad to see you go. He was a very nice guy. Thank you, Mr. Seward, Senator Seward, for your years of service. And he was a good speaker, Kevin, and he was very supportive of the local Tea Party guys, even if at some point they felt like he was ineffectual. I don't blame him for being as ineffectual. Like, his ideas and principles were good, and certainly he became, as they like to point out, part of the political machine. That's inevitable, unfortunately. Like, that's a reality given our political system. So Godspeed and good wishes.
Yeah. Oh, rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace. There we go.
There we go. All right. So
white dudes for Kamala, Kevin. White dudes for Kamala.
Oh my God.
I can't let this show go by without talking about that for a second.
No, like, that's among all the topics you could have picked. Yeah, I did that. White dudes for Kamala, the white women for Kamala. Like, as I mentioned, I think towards the end of the show last week, like a lot of stuff's cringe. Like, man, it's just like it's like the post 2020 like cringier version of what like people did with Hillary Clinton. No, it ain't it. They're creating like weird racial segments for Kamala Harris. Nope.
I agree. It's cultural Marxism, Kevin. It's identity.
That's at least closer to my understanding of the term.
Right. Well, it's identity politics. It's it's division. It's leadership through keeping us divided. It's a strange flag to carry. I guess I can understand people wanting to like Kamala Harris, but I don't know why. Like, I think she's going to provide us with a lot of material. I don't think she's a great speaker. I think I've warned my conservative friends, and I want to warn you guys again, WSL audience, to my friends out here that are conservative, the GOP does not understand the problems of why it lost the last election. They have done nothing to fix it, because I think down the road, they're going to take advantage of the very same rules that have been put in place. I think that's what they see. I think Kamala Harris is our next president, and I hate to say it. Like, I'd prefer it to be Donald Trump, and I hate to say that. It's like, I'm in a weird spot, people. I'm in a weird spot.
Say you prefer it to Donald Trump?
No, I prefer Donald Trump to her. I'm sorry.
Donald Trump. Okay, I thought you said at first. I thought you misheard. I was like, wait.
I could have said it wrong, right.
But I'm still in the camp of I would prefer neither. They are different versions of like terrible like people and policies.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think that's fair.
It's like I don't really want to go down either of those roads. Give me another viable option, please. So yeah, I don't know. I don't like any of that stuff. Let's see. So since we're on like national politics a little bit anyway, we'll get to this question that we got earlier in the show from John Barron. Said, did you hear Biden wants to set term limits for Supreme Court justices before he leaves office? That's John Barron on YouTube. I heard a little bit about this, and I checked out some of the stories. This is like somewhat of a newer thing. Here's my initial take on it. I actually don't hate the idea of term limits on Supreme Court justices. I don't think that Biden is doing so for quite the right reasons, but I actually do think it makes sense. And hear me out, right?
Yeah.
Because if you set the terms to like a regular number of years, so that each 4-year term of president, they get to, nominate a certain, number of people, and it's regular and predictable. I think it kind of cools down a lot of a lot of the fighting that will happen, and a lot of like the weird stuff that can happen on Supreme Court where you have uneven number of like appointments per term. So like someone like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was on way too long, like, you know, she probably would have stepped off a bit sooner because she would have already served that term. So like I think they can you could have like 9-year terms because there's 9 justices, and they can have it, and then you like basically select one every year. Or they've had like, I've seen another one where up to 18 years, and then you do like every 2 years is when you do the selection. I think that's an all right way of doing things. Now you're gonna have to amend the Constitution to do that. And it doesn't necessarily solve the problem Joe Biden thinks it's solving, right? Because you could still have people die in office. You can still have on the Supreme Court, you could still have you know, multiple Republican presidents winning and picking justices that you don't like. You know, that's always an option too. And you know, like, so some of the things, like I think they're fine in principle. I don't think they're solving the problem. I think, because he had also talked about term limits, and also an ethics code for justices, which again I would have to come through the Constitution. It's not something he can do. It's not something Congress can do really on their own. I think it has to be like a constitutional thing where you set limits. And again, and the whole like Justice Thomas like ethics stuff, I think is like way blown out of proportion. Like honestly, like it's the insinuation like, oh, he's only super conservative because this rich guy like buys nice stuff for him. Like, no, man, he's always been like that. Like always.
He's been a conservative constructionalist, though more conservative. Like if he is to fail on an emotional way, he'll fail with it towards a religious theocracy kind of idea concept. Like certain amounts of government force are okay with him, you know, certain amount of government power, whereas Gorsuch and him occasionally end up opposed on their rulings.
Right. Yeah, I mean, his interpretation of like the executive branch and the power of the state go a lot further than I would, but like, dude's consistent. Like he's been the same guy ever since he's gotten appointed. Like,
I do have the tweet to reference. I'm not sure which direction to go because I want to kind of present the counter argument to having term limits with justices, but I also want to discuss what Joe Biden, air quotes, is actually calling for, which he wrote up in a tweet. Okay. Let's go with the tweet first. All right. In the face of increasing threats to America's democratic institutions, I'm calling for 3 bold reforms to restore trust and accountability to the Supreme Court and our democracy. First, I am calling for a constitutional amendment called the No One is Above the Law Amendment. It would make it clear that there is no immunity for crimes a former president committed while in office. I mean, that opens up a lot of cans of worms that I kind of like, but okay. I share our founders' belief that the president's power is limited, not absolute. We are a nation of laws, not of kings or dictators. That's a very powerful sounding platitude. I enjoy the tone of it. Let's say it that way, right?
Platitude.
Yeah.
There you go.
Second, we have had term limits for presidents for nearly 75 years. We should have the same Supreme Court. We should have the same for Supreme Court justices. The United States is the only major constitutional democracy that gives lifetime seats to its high courts. Term limits would help ensure that the court's membership changes with some regularity. That would make timing for court nominations more predictable and less arbitrary. It would reduce the chance that any single presidency radically alters the makeup of the court for generations to come. I support a system in which the president would appoint a justice every 2 years to spend 18 years in active service on the Supreme Court. Third, I am calling for a binding code of conduct for the Supreme Court. This is common sense. The court's current voluntary ethics code is weak and self-enforced. Justices should be required to disclose gifts, refrain from public political activity, and recuse themselves from cases in which they or their spouses have financial or other conflicts of interest. Every other federal judge is bound by an enforceable code of conduct. There is no reason for the Supreme Court to be exempt. All 3 of these reforms are are supported by a majority of Americans, as well as conservative and liberal constitutional scholars. In America, no one is above the law. In America, the deep state rules. I may have changed the word there.
Yeah, it sounds like a little bit of editorializing there, Tim.
Just one word. That's all I
one.
changed. Just one word. That's it.
Uh,
So look, it's platitudinous. It is appealing on a platitudinous level. But when we get into this notion of Supreme Court justices having term limits in which they are obligated to go out and earn money after being a Supreme Court justice, like, can't you just buy a good ruling from them and then give them a good job? Like, don't they just turn into the highest paid lobbyists ever? Aren't they just like,
could
doesn't
create
that,
other conflicts of interest, right?
yeah,
You know, it's,
that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know.
I mean, although like 18 years is a pretty long time, right? You
Mhm.
know, it's
That's fair.
yeah, it's not a short stint, you know. So again, and I'd have to look it up. Like I don't think that I don't know. I've got to see how long the average like term of service for Supreme Court justices are. Like it might not be like all that much longer than that. But you know, like I said, it does create more like predictable like churn in the Supreme Court. I don't hate it. Again, I don't like it for the reasons that like Biden thinks it's going to benefit like rule of law and you know make sure that like his guys get on the court. Like I think he seems to think that. That's not really how it's going to work out though.
Right.
You know, it's going to work out almost the exact same way it is now. It's just it's going to be a crapshoot whether or not like because again, someone could die in office and then they get an extra appointment, and you know, like who knows? It can happen all sorts of ways. We didn't talk about it like because actually a local member of Congress introduced I don't know if it's the same bill he's talking about, but the one related to presidential immunity. Congressman Morelli actually introduced a constitutional amendment in the House that would basically say like that that presidents are accountable for like any illegal actions that they take in office, which I'm like, you know what, if you're gonna solve something, constitutional amendment's the way to go. I don't think that people are gonna like the consequences of that. Like I don't think elected officials like and presidents are gonna like the consequences of that, but I actually agree with the solution.
Now, what the reality is how hard would it be to get a constitutional amendment through on these issues? It takes
Impossible. But
that's the whole
it'd be
idea.
very
Aren't they?
tough. I think it would be a good idea. I think more Republicans should take both of those ideas seriously, and like see beyond like what they think or maybe what are President Biden's motivations for these things, and say like, hey, this is actually good for the Republic. These are two like reforms that I think make sense. And you know, and again, we could debate the terms thing. You brought up a good point about it, but I think makes sense and are worth like serious debate beyond just, oh, the Democrats proposed it. Let's just forget about it.
Right. So there are problems with the Supreme Court, but like, okay,
Yeah,
maybe we'll talk about this in the break, guys.
we have
out
to talk
there.
about it break. We're
Yeah.
like a minute over now. So thanks, folks, for listening on WSL for on a free solution. We're gonna be back in just a minute. Talk to you soon.
I lost my train of thought too. What was
It's all right.
that?
You know, I know you're about to talk about that, and you have like I thought this was gonna be a rough show because I actually had COVID over the weekend.
Oh my
and
God.
it was like, yeah, like I mean, it's 2024 COVID, so it's like fine.
Sure.
But like I had like brain fog all weekend. I was like,
Mhm.
like barely talk.
That's okay. Like, this is good, man. This is good. I don't mind. Like, so this Supreme Court has offered us some pleasant surprises. Earlier last year, there was a session where they kind of endorsed the authority of a centralized government, like John Jay Republican style, which annoyed me a little bit. But there has been a distinct, anti-authoritarian bent. We look at what happened with the ruling that did away with the regulatory agencies having the right to have the force of law just codified by their feelings and opinions by changing the rules at a whim. Can you remember what that was called? because I'm having a brain fart myself right now.
Say again. Oh.
All right, cancel that. Kelo, the court ruling that allows for eminent domain confiscation of property should be revisited under this Supreme Court, because I think that we would get into some interesting waters where people like Donald Trump, who have managed to have property condemned by government officials so that they can park their freaking limousine, that's a real problem. Government officials participating in condemning property to advance businesses without them having to pay market prices or negotiate maybe overpay for certain pieces of property because they fit their vision, right? So I never liked Kelo. I don't like the results of eminent domain. I don't like it when a city government comes in and condemns an entire city block on behalf of a hospital, or whatever the public works are, or for any business. We had an issue here where grant money was going to a local manufacturer and they wanted to build a new facility, and the guy's like, they found a new property, and the guy's like, well, I want a lot of money for it. And they're like, well, we'll just condemn it and take it from you. And it's like, that's got to stop. That is not okay. It's part of the reason why we've killed the state in upstate New York, that this overwhelming burden of and risk of owning property where you won't be able to score, where the government will take it from you. And so that was a Kelo.
Because you can, and it's the taking it for private purposes thing that the Kelo decision said too. Because if you remember, the Kelo decision was they were going to build like a pharmaceutical factory or something on this woman's land, and she didn't want to sell her house. And basically they're like, yep, no, we can do that. And then they didn't even end up doing
it. That's the worst part of it, right?
Yeah. Sold her house, like got kicked out of her house for nothing at a price that she didn't agree to. And so like eminent domain is in the Constitution, right? So like you can take property for like the public good, and it's for better or worse meant for like, getting a right of way for a road or something, right?
Right.
It's like the idea for infrastructure of some other sort, power lines or water infrastructure, whatever. But yeah, the Kelo decision that like you can do this for the public good because like a company is going to bring jobs to your area. No, that's much further and much grosser than like the original intended purpose.
Yeah, that to me is a real problem, right? Let's see if we got some more. I'm weird. I know, John. I know I'm weird. But you have Joe Biden on as a profile picture, so I mean, come on, man. That is correct. Let's see. Dark Closet of the Mind is out there. Wants us to talk about the Maplewood Park shooting and all the footage.
Yeah. So that's the thing out in Rochester.
Okay.
Yeah, just I don't have much of an opinion on it yet. Like it seems awful. I saw that there's footage going around. I also saw that there's a bunch of weird rumors going around too, like libs of TikTok misrepresent some stuff about the shooting.
Libs of TikTok are cultural Marxists, Kevin.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
You don't mind it when I use it that way. The things I don't like.
Yeah, like the local media is like, what the heck are you guys talking about? But yeah, I don't have an opinion on it other than like it's an awful event. I say a prayer for all the folks who are victims of the shooting. It's terrible. I don't know what to think about it yet, but it's awful.
All right.
Other than that, so
yeah.
But yeah.
For the next segment, we've got
well, actually, so Kai, real quick for the next segment, what I want to do is I found the actual amendment to the Constitution that Congressman Rowley proposed, and I want to read it. It's not very long.
Okay,
so
yeah, let's do that. And then a little bit of rapid fire stuff. I want to talk about that Massachusetts gun bill that could set a wild precedent all over the country. And then some things that Patty sent us about maybe certain Supreme Courts should be packed and should be terminated. Like, and justices should be fired for this. Like, it's amazing. The Ohio Supreme Court is awful. Just
sounds
awful.
Like a juicy story.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll go back in Yeah, just a couple seconds. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm still here, brother. It's a wild and interesting time. I think, we've got a Supreme Court justice issue in the state of Ohio that we've got to talk about. You wanted to talk about an amendment to the Constitution?
No, I want to. Yeah, the local congressman, the guy I ran against in 2020, put up a constitutional amendment. I mentioned that he did this in the last segment, and I'm going to read it quick and just get your thoughts on it, because I think it's generally kind of a good thing, actually. And it's the right way to go about it. Instead of just whining about it and fundraising off of this issue, like, okay, amend the Constitution if you really think that presidents need to be held more accountable.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, no, fine. Okay, so the article says, Section 1, no officer of the United States, including the president and the vice president or a senator or representative in Congress, shall be immune from criminal prosecution for any violation of otherwise valid federal law, nor for any violation of state law unless the alleged criminal act was authorized by federal law, on the sole ground that their alleged criminal act was within the conclusive and preclusive constitutional authority of the office or related to the official duties except for senators and representatives acting pursuant to the first clause of the sixth section of the first article. Section 2, the president shall have no power to grant a reprieve or pardon for offenses against the United States to himself or herself. Section 3, this amendment is self-executing, and Congress shall have the power to enact legislation to facilitate the implementation of this amendment.
Okay, so on its face, I love it, right? Like, I think that this is it's a good way. And look, you and I pretty regularly criticize all of these legislators who, cry tweet and virtue signal and talk about things to further this notion of cultural Marxism. It's
the theme for the day.
I know. I just couldn't resist. But yeah, so that's a positive, proactive step. And on its face, I absolutely agree with it. Like, people are talking about Trump may have a pocket pardon. Like, he may have, like, even if he was to end up in jail, he has written himself a pardon that he can just be like, psych, I already pardoned myself for this. Like, and that. So there, it's like,
like that ain't right. You shouldn't be able to do that.
No,
and this amendment makes sense. Like, okay, if you get convicted of breaking the law, you can't just like pardon yourself. Like, that seems reasonable. And it applies to, like, again, Joe Biden's thing. He's talking about like doing it for presidents. Like, this applies to the senators and representatives too. Great. It should. And again, like, this is coming from the House. This is coming from someone who's in the House. And so, like, he's in a sense saying, like, if he breaks the law, then he's held accountable too. And actually, again, I don't often say very nice things about Congressman Morelli, but he has this one totally right.
Look, interestingly enough, it would have broad implications for another subject that we talk about regularly, that there is this broad notion of qualified immunity at all levels of the government, in every office and in every act, by people that are sometimes proven out to be bad actors, and they still get away with it because they, under their job, as long as they think they're doing it in some sort of interest of the government or some sort of best interest to society, they get away with crimes. And so that has implications for qualified immunity at all levels of the government. With a few rulings, I could see where it would travel all the way down to everyday citizens, where people are getting away with bad acts. I love it. Like, let's see some action on that. Let's see, like, our buddy Thomas Massie sign on to that. That would be fantastic, right? That would be really interesting. And I know he's a big fan of the show, so perhaps he'll be like, "Oh yeah, let's check that bill out."
Maybe I'll check it out. It's worth it. All right, so I had to throw that out there, just because I want to talk about that in a substantive way. But we had a few other things that we want to talk about. Tim, what things should we get to next?
Let's see here. Okay, look, it's still in the same vein of, like, justices are absolutely corrupt. The Ohio Supreme Court has decided that boneless chicken wings advertised as boneless, can actually have bones. Kevin, this is a travesty. This is an injustice. And honestly, this is another call for end qualified immunity. There's no reason that judges should be this incompetent as to say, if you
Send
have
to
a
jail.
boneless wing with bones in it, what an absurdity. How does that even happen?
Wait, so I didn't read up on the rule. Like how I don't understand like how you could possibly say that like boneless wings can have a bone in them. Like, cause like, I mean, was the case like there's like bone meal in it or something like, or was there like an actual bone in this chicken? Cause like if I want boneless chicken wings for some reason, which let's be honest, are just fancy chicken nuggets. That's what they are. Like just, to me, I would just get wings. But if I'm giving it to my kid or something, I want him to have a bone in there. Like it better not have bones in it. So I'm paying for it. I'm specifically asking for no bones.
Okay, so it does actually go into an accountability issue. Okay, a guy named Michael Birkenheimer sued Wings on Brockwood in 2016, saying the restaurant failed to warn him that boneless wings could, in fact, contain bones, a piece of which became lodged in his throat and caused an infection. So if you're buying your kid boneless wings, and through a lack of quality control and a lack of concern by people presenting the food, there should be some liability somewhere along the lines. But this is a real thing. A guy was injured by a bone in a boneless chicken wing. Okay, and the Ohio Supreme Court in a 4-3 ruling came back with, nah, it's okay that those chicken wings had bones in it. So that's a problem at the manufacturing level. And that's a problem where a business is not being held accountable for poor quality control. And that honestly, Kevin, as we've talked about so many times, that's something that really bothers me. I don't know that I would want this guy to be able to bankrupt them, but I would want him to be able to claim some of his hospital bills or all of his hospital bills against the people who misrepresented their product.
Right. Like, fair. I mean, I feel like if like there's other stuff, like if the food had like been misprepared in some way, right? Like, it's like, and you were injured because of that, like mispreparation. Again, like the ruling saying like this was a cooking style. And he should be on guard against bones because chickens have bones. Like, man, it's not like sometimes like I've gotten a chicken wing before and it's had like a little bit of feather in it. And that's, that's gross. But like, okay, like that's not going to kill me probably. But like, no, like this is a serious thing. Like, again, the same thing, like any other thing. Like if I were eating a hamburger and had like a big chunk of bone in it too, I'd be like, what? It should not have that in it. Especially if it was specifically advertised as boneless hamburger. But like, I mean, if you said that to me, I'd be like, why do you need to specify boneless? But I don't know. Like, I don't.
Okay, so
what's this court thinking?
I don't know that the food. So Justice Dieters, that wrote the majority opinion, claims, and to me this is absurd. Okay, the food items label on the menu described a cooking style. It was not a guarantee. And so, as Patty points out, one of our big friends who brought this article to my attention, actually said this guy was really sick, ended up needing emergency care because his esophagus was, had gotten torn by a long-thin bone, and it caused an infection. Like this guy was legitimately harmed because he counted on an advertised product to be without bones. I think, and the whole thing was dismissed by lower courts. The upper courts took it under advisement and supported the decisions made by the lower courts that dismissed this thing. And it was a 4-3 ruling. It was peppered with dissent. One judge called the majority opinion utter Jabberwocky, and whoever that guy is, I'm with him.
It's a Jabberwocky thing, and I hadn't read this before. I said what I said too. Is like, like I give my son like chicken fingers sometimes. Like, man, I don't expect there to be bones in chicken fingers.
And now you know that if there are bones in your chicken fingers, that you may not be able to sue somebody for it.
Yeah,
and that's unfortunate. It's like, I don't know. It reminds me of like the FDA and all the stuff I hate about the government, where they're not effective communicators. We don't hold people accountable, and so it's a real problem. And now here it is furthered. I hope it goes to the Supreme Court though, and they overturn it. Justin Clare's
They should.
Thomas writes a scathing rebuke of the Ohio Supreme Court.
Yeah, I think everyone would appreciate a good ruling on boneless wings.
Yeah. And look, there has been a number of shootings. We talked about Sonia Massey last week a little bit, and the incompetence of that police officer, what appeared to be incompetence. I am definitely leaning, based on what I've seen, that guy deserves to be in jail. He's lost his job. He's not suspended. He's fired. He's been charged. Arguably, to me, that looks like the right thing. Don't care what anybody else says. I've made my judgment. Like, that guy deserves what he's going to get. This gets into, now, does the other cop also deserve some accountability? They were clearly overreacting to hot water. Like, you can throw honestly, if you want to, guys, give me 8 feet. You could throw a pot of boiling hot water at me. I think I'll be able to dodge it. And if I don't, I think I will remain uninjured. Like, we can test that out. I don't think I would need to shoot you in the face. I want to be clear.
Yeah, still shouldn't do that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You shouldn't throw hot water at people. I get it.
No, you shouldn't do that. I'm saying you shouldn't do that, and you definitely shouldn't shoot someone in the face.
Both things.
Yeah, no, both bad things. Yeah, so that's that one. And then you want to talk about the Massachusetts gun law?
Yeah, let me see if I can find the article about that. This is an ugly law going on in Massachusetts, where they are reclassifying all sorts of weapons. They are expanding all of the I guess they call it something different, but concealed carry permissions as to where guns can be taken to protect yourself. I had an article up on it, and I'm trying to find it.
I mean, are they basically doing what New York was doing?
That's correct. It is that, but it appears to be one step further. And so the details of the bill are a bit sketchy, but there's the NRA is stepping in early in this one and trying to invalidate the law. Governor Healy signed the law into law on Thursday of last week, and of course they're calling it new strategies for combating so-called ghost guns, expanding the law that allows a court to take guns away from someone considered a threat to themselves or others, and adding schools, polling places, and government buildings to the list of areas where state law prohibits or forbids people from carrying firearms. Now, the bill also changes how state law defines assault-style firearms, which has some gun owners worried that many modern semi-automatic rifles could be considered illegal under the new laws. The guys that I was working with in Massachusetts have already lost all of their guns in a boating accident. They're gone. They're gone. They're gone. Their guns, boating accident, they're gone.
Darn shame.
It certainly seems to include verbiage that is going to allow for confiscation of semi-automatic weapons, including shotguns, 22s, semi-automatic pistols, and the ability to accept a detachable feeding device that features at least 2 of the following features: so pistol braces, a folding or telescopic stock, and a thumbhole stock or pistol grip, a forward grip or a second hand grip so that you can aim your gun slightly better, a threaded barrel designed to accommodate a flash suppressor, or muzzle brake or similar feature, or a shroud that encircles all or part of the barrel designed to shield the bearer's hand from heat. In other words, to hide the heat. So anything that makes guns slightly more private, Yeah.
So I mean, this is like going all the way back to the SAFE Act and some of the other things that New York State has done. It's taking features of the gun that don't in and of themselves make it like any more dangerous or deadly, and criminalizing them, right? So that's what this is doing, and it's just turning otherwise law-abiding gun owners into criminals, and is not actually going to solve the problem that they want to solve. And it passed, I'll notice overwhelmingly, it was like 128 to 33 was a count on this. And this is empty virtue signaling. This is just a way of making them feel good, like they've done something meaningful to stop gun violence, when in fact, this will not do a darn thing. Not at all. It will not do a darn thing to stop gun violence. It will turn a bunch of people into criminals.
Yeah, it will. Prisons don't fill themselves, bud. You know what I mean? And that is what, in fact, it will do. There will be more Dexter Taylors. There will be more, there's other people that have been in the crosshairs of laws like this. It will keep the justice system busy, issuing fines, confiscating weapons, and creating problems for formerly law-abiding citizens who have broken no law except for the new law created to criminalize their property. It's the weaponization of the state. It is very dangerous. I decry it. Words are not enough to explain how dangerous this kind of authoritarianism is. And so here we have it, a new law making, maybe 1 million people criminals in Massachusetts.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, on that note, we do have to end the show. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution on WYSL. Have a great night, WYSL audience. Take care.
All right, brother. Once again, thank you for doing the show tonight. Thanks for joining us on the surprise edition of A Free Solution. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Spotify. Those things will help keep this little bit of success that Kevin and I have been building growing, and we appreciate it. What else should we talk about, though? Maybe there's a couple other things.
Tim, you threw another one out. Made like the CIA denies that the Trump assassinate was MK Ultra.
Yeah.
Wait,
all right.
So I saw something about this the other day, and I assumed it was a joke. But
okay. Well, I went searching for the source material on this one, and unfortunately, I couldn't find anything. I'm not saying it's not out there, but like Google can't even give me the right oil filter for my kid's car. So I'm suspicious. Okay. There was a day when you could search on Google for car parts and it would come back with exactly the right part. And now I can't even find it whether the CIA formally denies that this kid was MK Ultra. And if they did formally deny it, I suspect that he was MK Ultra. I just want to be clear about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what they would say.
Yeah, if I was MK Ultra and people, I would certainly deny it.
I don't know, it just raises suspicions even more. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. See, you and I share a wavelength on this
too much.
stuff.
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, but I'm usually in this case. I am of the mind that the Occam's razor, right? It's probably, it's probably that this guy was just a nut job and just did that. Although, the CIA has done some shady stuff. They've done some weird things.
Look, it's impossible to deny, and it certainly is an issue of, hey, they've done really crappy stuff in the past. Why would we presume them to be honest and honorable institution of government now? Okay, and I don't. I presume that they're regardless of their puritanical aims or the right goals, that their methodology is suspect. And look, there may be no way to accomplish their goals without suspect methodology. So maybe their goals need to change. What do you think about that? I saw your reaction.
No, I mean, there's particularly with the CIA, there's a shocking lack of accountability in actions. And only occasionally has Congress slapped back at that wild overreach of authority that seems to go beyond both constitutional congressional power and sometimes presidential power as well. And listen, that's not a conspiracy theory thing. That is just people with guns run amok. That's what it is. With no accountability, with hey, don't worry about it, it's a secret type of stuff. Doing things as awful as setting up secret torture sites.
Yeah,
And as still awful, but like more silly, like secretly like giving people LSD and just watching what they do, which sometimes it's just funny, but sometimes like it literally destroyed lives. Like some of this stuff, it's like they've given it to people and it's made them like permanently insane. Just because they want to see what it would do.
Look, absolutely, they performed experiments with hallucinogenic drugs that injured people forever. Okay,
Yeah, like so,
And-
like
and-
on
bro,
domestic soil and abroad, doing all sorts of crazy stuff. Like it's just again, what we've talked about before. That I if you haven't listened to it, the Behind the Bastards episodes on the CIA have been really good. Again, this is he's coming at it from like the far left perspective, but like
sure,
he did a really good job putting in the history of like Project Bluebird and like the MK Ultra stuff. Like it's
that is a fantastic series. Like that really is among the best, most informational like resources about the CIA. Look, we have an organization that legitimately can run drugs and guns to fund wars without without a lot of consequences for that malfeasance. Okay, it's like that's a problem. That's a real problem. And guys, I am not suicidal. I want to be very clear about that. And I love this country.
Yeah.
And the CIA can do whatever it wants. It's fine. It's just fine.
It's fine. Don't.
I'm not criticizing the CIA at all.
Have some spine, Tim.
Yeah.
No, Chuck Schumer's out there throwing out warnings about it, but like you're gonna be
6
okay.
ways to Sunday, bro. Like, don't mess with the CIA. They will take you down 6 ways to Sunday. It just, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Look, Patty's had collected some good news stories. The world's largest collection of bedpans. Well, what might be the world's largest collection of bedpans. It failed to sell at auction, but he wants the world to know that they're still available. That's important.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Good to know. If I don't know. I'm sort of following some of the Venezuelan election stuff too.
Sure.
It's like Maduro is getting reelected. The heavy air quotes on that.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll see how that turns out. Even though I gotta fact check this, but like there's someone who's tweeting about how the New York Times is referring to like how Venezuela like failed in their noble socialist endeavors and fell to like brutal capitalism. I gotta see if that's real.
Oh my god!
Because like if anyone's referring to like current Venezuela as like capitalist, they need to get a grip. Is not what's happening here.
Right. Well, I haven't had time to travel down the Maduro wormhole. I know that he's an authoritarian. I know Venezuela has been utterly destroyed. The collective weight loss in Venezuela is impressive. I mean, the government cares about your health. You get skinnier people, they live longer. That's all he's really trying to do, Kevin. I mean, other than force people to go work on farms, it's all coming together. I don't know. What do you think? We could talk about the successes of Javier Milei. Oh, what happened?
And what one other thing with Chavez, like you're seeing reversing here, right? Like like Javier Milei is like a good segue to this because like Argentina at one point in time was possibly the richest country in the Western Hemisphere. Like at the time, like the beginning of the like 20th century, like it may have been like richer per capita than the United States. And then it fell to populism, fascism, socialism, and had a century of getting dragged through all that nonsense.
Yeah.
Hopefully it comes back from that. Like if they, I mean, they're seeing economic growth in Argentina again. They're seeing inflation come down for the first time in forever. Hopefully that works. Venezuela, before Hugo Chavez came to power, was the second richest country in the Western Hemisphere. They had and still have just a stupid amount of oil. And they had an amount of oil like when prices were crazy high and things are good and there's a lot of wealth. And so a bunch of people like were like, oh, well, like they should be sharing that around and we should just seize the oil fields and like distribute that wealth. And then what happened? That now, like I said, people are starving. People can't find productive work there. They had inflation so bad that there's a period of time where people were like weaving the money into like other goods like baskets and selling the baskets or bartering with those things.
Wild.
Yeah, it's just the inflation was ridiculous. And they've introduced a couple market reforms to try to make things a little bit better there, but like not nearly going far enough to, A, allow a true economy to thrive, and B, the guy isn't letting go of power. Maduro's not letting go of power. The successor to Hugo Chavez. So yeah,
right.
Bleak situation down there.
Look, Chavez goes, that goes way back. Like he was there for years. It was utterly predictable what was going to happen. There was this was back when like forums were a big thing. I don't know if you remember them, like from the dark ages of the interwebs, where people would get in small groups and discuss politics. I can remember people were celebrating the fact that like the soldiers of Chavez were going around and confiscating beer from stores because they wanted to have it for themselves. And they're like, yay, like stick it to the man. And I'm like, who's the man that you're sticking it to? Your local grocer? Like, what are you doing here, man? Like, that is not going to go well. Who's going to make more beer to sell in your grocery stores when they don't get paid for their stuff being on the shelves? These stores are going to go out of business. Like, and it all ended exactly where we think it was going to end, where people who believe in free markets thought it was going to end. And that's with people starving. That's with violence in the streets. That's with rampant inflation. That's with the government dictating rules that do not work and distorting markets. That's what happened. And again, we talk about distorting markets in an philosophical sense, in a intellectual sense. Market distortions destroy lives. Okay. They make homelessness. They make people hungry. They create food deserts. Like market distortions ruin things. Like it's real, it's devastating, and not enough people listen to it.
No, you're right. And like you're right. We always have to make it like more human, right? Because I know we and I mean libertarians generally, but also us can like sometimes talk about it in an abstract way, like, oh, like these economics nerds worrying about like a few like dollars here and there, right? Or like these abstract concepts when people are starving. No, like the actual thing causing harm to people, though, like it's not abstract, it's not like ideological, it is tangible. It means people having less. It means people like going without heat. It means people going without food. It means like devastated and destitute lives. And it doesn't matter how good like their intentions are, and I'm not sure that their intentions are actually good in this case, but like it doesn't matter if their intentions are good, because that's how the New York Times writes about like because I've seen actual quotes from this, like that's how they write about like the Maduro regime, like, oh, like they're really trying to do a good job with like bringing socialism and bringing a revolution that helped the poor. I'm like, okay, maybe some people thought their intentions were good. Okay, and I'll grant that, but like, look at the results. Look at what they brought to their people: death and destruction. Like, because they wanted to fight the ideology of free markets. No, it's not abstract. It's not ideological. It is very human. And if we want a flourishing, successful society, if we want the poor to be able to like have a comfortable and successful life, then we need free markets.
We need, and the freer the market, the better. I get some government control over market externalities. I understand those discussions. I think that they're important, but I think that at the end of the day, centrally planned stuff is creating market distortions. Everywhere we look, every program that we look at creates market distortions. It makes college less affordable. It destroys brands of colleges. All of the things that it can do that are bad, it does when we distort markets. And it's horrendous. It's horrendous.
And those things that distort markets, college and housing, which is something that like young people are panicked about. They're like, our lives are worse because like these things are higher. These are like the biggest expenses for, you know, like people who are 23 and getting out of college. They're trying to pay their student loan bills, and they're seeing like how much harder it is to pay those two specific bills. We'll set aside everything else, but like those two specific bills are much higher. They're caused by government distortion. And then they get tricked into, well, gosh, you know, like it's just the greedy landlords and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, we need communism to be able to fix this. But it's a logical cause this.
Yeah, it's a logical progression, though. That bitterness is a logical progression. But it's also a manipulation because
no, they can't afford anything and they're angry, and I get it. It's
right.
just that their anger is misplaced. And it's not just young people who say this, but like this is like a thing that I see on TikTok specifically a lot. But
sure,
you know, it's misplaced. Is the government breaking your legs and selling you the crutches?
Yeah,
they love doing that.
Absolutely. So look, there was something that we never got a chance to cover when it broke, and it broke, I think, all the way back in January, Kevin. And I don't remember us talking about it. And maybe like it's a big subject, but it's something to talk about. Maybe at another show where we do a deeper dive on it. But Justin Trudeau and his administration got totally and thoroughly rebuked for its behavior during the trucker convoy. Like totally and thoroughly, utterly rebuked by one of Canada's high courts. And it was weird to me. And it goes to this like concept of that we always talk about, qualified immunity, right? Where if they do it with good intentions, there's no real punishments handed out, because he's like, well, we were just trying to make lives better for everyone. And they did things like seize people's assets, and they did things like block bridges, and they did things like shut down a valid form of protest and stole property from the people protesting to try to make them go away. All of those things got smashed apart in Canada's high court. And during the whole, like, he testified like, well, we were just trying to help everyone. We were just trying to do the right thing. You know what I mean?
That counts.
Like, wow. You know,
we were just violating rights because, you know, like they were on the wrong, like, look at, they were on the wrong side.
Sure.
Obviously. Yeah. So like we could do whatever. Like, can't be sympathetic with them. No, that's not how rights work. That's not how governments get to act. You know, the government acted in some pretty ugly ways. Like, regardless of how you feel about like the cause of like the truckers and everything, like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, and again, noting that like Canada has different sets of fundamental rights written into government restrictions than the U.S. does, but still they have some of that in there.
Yeah. It was in like. Trudeau responded to the trucker protests by invoking the 1988 Emergencies Act for the first time in Canada's history, granting federal government sweeping powers, including the ability to ban gatherings at certain locations and stop crowdfunding efforts. That was one of the biggest atrocities of it, is they literally stole money raised to support these guys. It was wild, the amount of money that they raised, though. I want to be honest. Like, I was certainly thought perhaps a little bit of well, they raised millions of dollars, and I don't know, I was a bit suspicious of that, because I'm like, you know, a skeptic, you know what I mean?
Right.
So like, you know, like some sort of libertarian dark heart was like, you know what we need to do, like sow chaos. Or the CIA was like, you know what, if we get a big mess in Canada,
finally time to make our move on Canada.
We still owe them. We still owe them.
Did the president approve that? Who cares? Take more LSD. It's fine.
That guy. Do you think LSD would help that guy?
Maybe. I don't know. Can't know until you try.
Yeah, and he should. You know, and he should. So I think we should do a deeper dive on it, maybe or do it for the WYSL audience down the road too. But it definitely something that got one of the amazing. I guess what frustrates me about it is the amazing amount of lack of coverage that it got in the official mainstream media, because people were like decrying the rights violations that were going on during the truckers' protest by the Canadian government, and they lost in court. And the court came back with what you did was completely illegal. You didn't have the right to invoke that Emergencies Act to punish this protest. And
I mean, Tim, I think you're forgetting something important, which is that is news from Canada. So, like, and again, I don't mean to be. I used to work for a Canadian company. I don't mean to be, but like, man, American stuff.
Right, but it was the trucker protest was we had sympathetic protests here.
Oh yeah, it was for sure a thing for a while.
Yeah, and so I feel as though it was incredibly big news when it started. It was incredibly big news when it got broken up. So I thought the news of it becoming invalidated in court was also big news that the mainstream media kind of glossed over, let's say.
Well,
doesn't sell, right?
That's what we do though. We find these stories that are undercovered and we chat about them.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll talk about that in a future episode with the WYSL audience. On that note, though, I think I'm gonna call it a night.
I agree, brother.
Thanks, everyone, for listening today. Appreciate you being here. You guys are what makes doing these shows like a lot of fun and worth it. So thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
All right. Good night, everyone.